Explosive new details on what President Obama knew about Hillary Clinton's email scandal and the campaign's efforts to try and, quote, clean it up. Good morning, everybody. Big show today on a Wednesday. I'm Bill Hemmer, live at America's Newsroom as we get going here. Nice to see you.
Good morning, you
Lucky
too.
white jacket
Thank
there.
you very much.
Good
Good morning, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So let's take you through this. It all started when President Obama was asked about the email server issue in March of 2015. Watch this.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
At the same time, everybody else learned it through news reports.
So we now know that that interview triggered an urgent email from Clinton aide Cheryl Mills to the other campaign staffers saying, quote, "We need to clean this up. President Obama has emails from Secretary Clinton. They do not say state.gov.
So days earlier now, a Clinton aide suggesting the campaign kept it all quiet for a very big reason. That's coming up in a moment. First, Chris Stirewalt, Fox News digital policy editor. Morning, Chris, to you. This was March of 2015. That's where all the action on the server was. The deleted emails, the subpoena from Congress. This was moving very quickly. Go.
Yeah, and what is revealed as as I dig through these purloined letters, allegedly purloined letters, you see what? Arrogance, hubris, absolute, total self-regard, astonishing. And what you find really revealing is the frustration that the more clear-eyed members of Clinton's team had when they say, you needed to clean this up. Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you take care of business? And they didn't take care of business. They didn't come forward. And as a result, all this time later, years after she's left, it's still going on, and they're having to say, we got to clean it up with the president.
Okay.
Astonishing.
The aide I mentioned there is Neera Tanden to John Podesta, okay? This is the back and forth. March 2nd, 2015. This is a Cheryl special. Know you love her, but this stuff is like her Achilles heel or kryptonite. She just can't say no to this stuff. Why didn't they get this stuff out like 18 months ago? So crazy. Podesta says, unbelievable. She writes, I guess I know the answer. They wanted to get away with it. There's probably a morsel of truth in that.
A deadgum big morsel, I would say, a chunk even. You have a situation where if Clinton, and we remember that moment that she had the press conference at the United Nations that was so astonishing, where she basically says, I did it for convenience and quit sweating me, and asked and answered. If they would have done the right thing and not been so arrogant, if they would have come out earlier and said, you know what, we've been asked for these records, and as it turns out, we made a serious error in judgment, there would have been a huge firestorm over it. It would have been enormous. But then you know what would have happened? It would have faded over time. Instead, because of that arrogance, they are dealing with this even still today.
All right, now, President Obama is accused by some of lying. When you go back to that month and the months that followed, was he?
You know what one of the favorite terms at the White House and any administration is called this plausible deniability.
How come?
They don't tell the president things that could be uncomfortable for him. The president can plausibly say that he knew that Hillary Clinton used a non-government email account for some emails to him. That doesn't mean that he necessarily knew that she had a homebrew server in her house running a whole separate email chain and didn't ever use state.gov emails. So he has plausible deniability on that count.
Quickly, do you see why the FBI did not prosecute? Or do you still ask yourself, why not?
James Comey, the FBI director, basically said it in between the lines. His point was, everybody knew. If the first defense witness in this prosecution would be who? The President of the United States, followed by the Secretary of Defense, followed by the head of the NSA, followed by a who's who of the Obama administration, and across the national security apparatus of the federal government, because everybody knew they let her get away with it. And at the end, you can't come back in and say, well, you let her get away with it for years, but now we're going to prosecute her for it. The chief magistrate of the United States knew about it and let her get away.
This can be debated. Okay, now plausible deniability. We're looking for that every day. A little bit of redemption, sir. The Reverend.
You know it.
Chris Stirewalt, see you soon. Martha.
Bye, brother.
So Donald Trump chewing over all of this as well and seizing on the latest in this email mess that hits both Clinton. He hit both Clinton and President Obama really during a rally yesterday in Florida. Watch this.
In other words, Mills was saying Obama He had to know that Hillary was using an illegal server, but he claimed otherwise. So that means Obama is now into the act. He didn't want to get caught up in the big lie.
So Trump has a very busy schedule today. Senior national correspondent John Roberts following all that live from Washington. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning to you, Martha. We begin in Washington today, where Donald Trump is celebrating his latest accomplishment. The old post office on Pennsylvania Avenue has been retrofitted with Trump Gold and is officially opening today as the Trump International Hotel. Why is this significant? Because Donald Trump likes to use this as an illustration of what he would do should he become president, start running the country, saying that he finished this project a year early and under budget and would like to do that with a lot of the federal programs, beginning with Obamacare, which he took aim at yesterday after the Obama administration came out and finally acknowledged that people who are enrolled in Obamacare will be looking at double-digit increases in their premiums in the next year. At a big rally in Tallahassee, Florida last night, here's what Donald Trump had to say about that.
Everybody's going to be going up like that. They gave a number of 25% average. They know that's not true. They wanted to try and get out of, get in front. They know that's not true. It's much more. You're going to have 60, 70, 80, 90% increases in Obamacare. We're going to repeal it, and we're going to replace it, and we're going to get you great, great health care at a fraction of the cost.
Donald Trump said in his speech at Gettysburg last Saturday that as part of his 100-day plan, his contract for the American voter, should he be fortunate enough to win the Oval Office, the moment that he walks in the door there, he will begin the process of repealing and replacing Obamacare, saying Hillary Clinton would leave it like it is. President Obama described Obamacare as kind of a starter home. Donald Trump sees it more like Tom Hanks' infamous money pit. Martha?
So, John, what do you make of these reports, based on your reporting, that the Trump campaign is done with fundraising, in particular fundraising that would be channeled to the party? A lot of people jumping on this news today saying that it indicates something about where they believe this race is going. What do you know?
Well, first of all, what I'm hearing from the campaign is that that is not true at all. What is true is that Donald Trump will not be headlining any more big money fundraisers. But after tonight, neither will Hillary Clinton. But they are still going to continue to raise money. Donald Jr. is going to be going out there hosting fundraisers. Reince Priebus, the chairman of the RNC, will be doing that. The RNC told me last night that a lot of the big money is already gone, so they'll be looking for sort of smaller donations, still large, and then of course they'll be continuing with their online and direct mail fundraising, which they say is going gangbusters. But both campaigns, after tonight, neither one of the candidates will be out there at those big money fundraisers. So I think this thing got a little bit overwritten, and I do know that Donald Trump's fundraising chairman, Steve Mnuchin, might not have quite characterized it accurately when he was talking to a reporter from the Washington Post. Martha?
Interesting. John, thank you very much.
So Trump was on our program yesterday, and we were talking to him. He was in Miami at Doral, and he talked about the importance of winning Florida. And boy, it is apparent when you look at the schedule. Yeah. All this comes out in a new battleground poll out of Florida this morning, according to Bloomberg. Donald Trump has a slight edge on Hillary Clinton, up by 2 points, 45-43 in that four-way race. And again, you can look at some of the early voting. There's a lot of spin from both sides.
There is.
Democrats are doing it. Republicans are doing it. The early voting can find good news for him, and you can find good news for her. 29 electoral votes in Florida.
I mean, at this point, the only number that really matters is the number that comes through on November 8th and into November 9th. But Florida is crucial, and it is fascinating to watch the reports of these early votes coming in. And Sean Spicer saying that in several of these close states, they're seeing very strong numbers for Republicans in early voting. So we're going to get into this more as we go through the morning. In the meantime, the Trump campaign ramping up charges that the media is in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Watch this.
I got to tell you, most of the people I'm out campaigning with know that it's been 2-on-1 from almost the beginning of this campaign, with the media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her.
So now a new report showing just how much negative coverage is going to each candidate. Mike Huckabee will weigh in on that, plus this.
We are watching this by the day. This is on the outskirts of Mosul. Getting uglier by the day. This battle, ISIS fighters now ready to defend their stronghold with an army of suicide bombers.
I get up every morning, I about got to turn on the television with a stick. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, yeah. I just never even know what's going to be on there. It's like the media. It's like 2-on-1 with the national media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her every day.
Don't know how long that stick is, but Mike Pence saying the news outlets are not giving his guy a fair shake. This is we get a new report from the Media Research Center, finding Trump coverage of the 3 broadcast nightly newscasts over the past 3 months has been hostile toward Donald Trump 91% of the time. Now, Mike Huckabee knows the media very well. Former governor of Arkansas, Fox News contributor, Trump supporter, and good day to you, sir, and thanks for coming back. What do you think of the report first on its face? The number seems extremely high. Defend it.
I mean, it's breathtaking, but I don't doubt it. I mean, if you just watch the mainstream media, that's what you see. It's all Donald Trump all the time, and it's all negative. And so, you know, the Media Research Center, what they do, they analyze the total number of minutes that's given, what the anchors say, what the guests say, what the commentators say. They add it up. It's a pretty fair analysis. And 91% of the time, they're speaking negatively about Donald Trump. And it may explain why right now the confidence of the American people in the news media is so much even below Congress. I mean, the media has become about as popular as a whole gang of cockroaches in your kitchen these days.
That's pretty low.
It's pretty accurate,
crawling
Bill.
around the tile. Now listen, the comparison to coverage over Clinton's server is not even close. I grant you that. But some of this stuff is coming from Trump anyway, by either the events of the day or something he has said or something from the past.
Look, I'll be the first to tell you that I think sometimes Donald Trump buries his own lead, to use a journalistic term. At Gettysburg the other day, I thought that, you know, he missed an opportunity to focus solely on his reforms by even bringing up the potential lawsuit. Well, as soon as he said that, I said, there's your Sunday talk show headline right there. That's what they're going to be talking about. And sure enough, it was. But that aside, I mean, there's no doubt but that the media will take any and everything that is negative toward Donald Trump and they will blow it up like it's the 4th of July. But when it comes to taking a look at Hillary Clinton and things that really matter, things like coordinating with her PAC, things like talking about she hopes for open borders and ultimate globalism, the fact that she destroyed evidence. My gosh, Bill, we've got a 4-star Marine general who's going to go to prison for doing less than what Hillary has done. He gave some classified information to some reporters, lied to the FBI. Hillary lied to Congress. She tore up classified evidence. She, destroyed evidence that was under subpoena, for heaven's sakes. And, you know, this guy's going to go to the big house. She wants to go to the White House. Americans are sick of the fact that the Clintons play by a totally different set of rules than the great unwashed that they seem to have such contempt
I will
for.
grant you the comment about the first 100 days on Saturday, and probably it would have been wise to leave that alone. You look at the last debate last Wednesday in Las Vegas. You know, I did 90 minutes of a lot of issues and a lot of topics, and the one story that people want to talk about was whether or not the election was rigged. And he could have avoided that, Governor, by not going there, or by finessing it in the following way. If this election's close, I'm not going to give in. You think Al Gore should have done it in 2000? You think George W. Bush should have done it?
You know, it's always easier to look back and say, gee, this is what I should have done. And having been on the debate stage many times, I'm always better after the debate at what I should have said. So I get that. But even so, there was substantive issues, not only in the debate, and I thought that, you know, to make a big deal of what he said, in the manner in which he said it, was really a little bit of overreach on the part of the media anyway. I mean, they didn't hold the fact that John Kerry, after the 2004 election, said that, you know, the results weren't fair. Of course, the big example being 2000, the Al Gore-George Bush race. You know, Barack Obama in 2008 talked about a rigged election, how he wasn't sure it was going to be fair because he thought Hillary might rig it. So this is not all that big a headline, but people treated it as if he had, just stomped on the Constitution or something.
Let's get to one more point here, and that's the issues, because they're largely absent. There's a media critic, television columnist, Andrew Tyndall, and he notes that issues on the nightly news, going back to the study, in his words, have been virtually non-existent. I saw some anecdotal evidence out of Ohio earlier today suggesting turnout there is already low. And that could be the result in 13 days. A low turnout in a campaign that's been about personality and not the issues, Governor?
If it's low turnout, I think that's bad for Hillary, because I'm convinced, Bill, that Trump supporters are going to go to the polls. If it rains 16 inches, they're going to swim right through the rainwater to get there. But look at the difference between the rallies that Trump is holding and the intensity of his voters. They'll stand in line for 8 hours to maybe, and maybe not, even get in the building. Hillary's rallies, I mean, good grief, they got to pump oxygen in the room to keep them awake, and the numbers are low. I mean, Tim Kaine had 30 people show up.
That's a very interesting point. But in your experience, you know rallies and numbers. Do they translate to votes? I'll give you the last word there. Go.
Well, here's what I do know. Traveling on planes and being in hotel lobbies about 5 days a week, everywhere I go, the intensity level for Donald Trump is just extraordinary. And what I see happening is people who will not tell a pollster, they will not tell a news reporter how they're going to vote, but they will lean over and whisper, and I'm talking about waiters and Uber drivers and all kinds of people who will say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. They're very passionate about it, but they won't even tell their own families because it creates such a fight with some of their friends and relatives. But I think what we're going to see is what we saw in Great Britain during the Brexit vote. I was there when that happened, and it shocked everybody except the people on the street.
Wow. I'll take that as a prediction. Governor, thank you. Mike Huckabee there in Florida. Fair enough. Thank you, sir, for coming back today. We'll talk real soon. Thanks, Mark.
You bet.
So more coming out about the rise in Obamacare premiums. One state seeing a triple-digit spike in Arizona. So why is it now considered a toss-up on Election Day? Arizona Governor Jan Brewer will join us to talk about what is going on in her home state. Coming up, plus the outrage over California's National Guard members being forced to pay back a decade-old bonus when they signed up to be available for Iraq and Afghanistan.
I held up my end of the contract. I deployed, stayed in an additional 6 years as an infantry officer, served honorably, retired honorably. I didn't think there would ever be an issue.
Here at home over allowing more refugees into our country, France is struggling to deal with a camp known as the Jungle, located in the port city of Calais. A massive move underway to get refugees into other parts of the country. 4,000 have been relocated. About 1,000 still remain in the camp, and they're currently dealing with fires that were set by migrants on the way out. And part of the destruction of that camp is now underway.
Anybody who volunteers to serve in the armed forces of the United States deserves our gratitude and respect. Period. We are going to look into it and resolve it.
Let's hope, right? Defense Secretary Ash Carter dealing with the fallout after the Pentagon told thousands of California National Guard soldiers to give back the enlistment bonuses, some of them as much as $15,000. Most of that money spent, some of it put into mortgages on houses, and now they've got to try to retrieve it. Rich Edson live from Washington with this. Rich, Congress is already looking into this, correct?
Yeah, good morning, Martha.
Good morning.
And the House Oversight Committee is already requesting documents and information. The California National Guard. In a letter from Committee Chairman Jason Chaffetz and other senior committee members, Congress is asking for all bonus repayment information since 2002 and how much in bonus money the Guard has awarded or reclaimed. The committee is giving the National Guard until November 7th to provide that information. The Senate Committee on Homeland Security has a similar request. In response to this, the chief of the National Guard Bureau tweeted that the National Guard is working with the U.S. Army, the Department of Defense, and the California National Guard to resolve this in a way that's respecting both soldiers and our duty to taxpayers. The Washington Post reports Major General Matthew Beavers of the California Army National Guard claims the National Guard tried to address the bonus repayments 2 years ago, though he claims Congress failed to add the additional funding during a time of spending cuts. Martha.
I mean, it's shocking on so many levels. You would think with all of the layers of bureaucracy that are involved in these kinds of payments that there would be enough people to figure out who deserves the money and make sure that they get it. So now is Congress going to step in and fix this?
Well, Martha, the issue has now received significant national attention, and when Congress is confronted with a story of those who served in the military during a time of war, and the government is now asking them to repay promised bonuses, politically, this is the type of issue lawmakers promise to quickly correct. In a statement, House Speaker Paul Ryan writes, quote, When those Californians answered the call to duty, they earned more from the U.S. bureaucratic bungling and false promises. The House has already taken steps to fix this kind of injustice in the future. Now the Pentagon should immediately suspend efforts to recover these overpayments so Congress has the time to complete work and begin in May to protect service members from lifelong liability for DOD's mistakes. Congress is out of town campaigning until after the election. The White House says President Obama has requested the Pentagon expedite its review of these cases, Martha.
Bureaucratic bungling at its finest. They need to deal with this. They need to deal with it quickly and get the money back to those people. Rich, thank you very much.
So Facebook executives speaking out about the company's future at a Wall Street Journal technology conference, insisting they still consider themselves a tech company, not a media company. The social network has come under fire recently for what some perceive as censorship regarding political speech and content. The chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, saying that Facebook wants to be a safe community and a platform for all ideas. You might remember that story from about 6 months ago. And timely enough, just talking about this with Governor Huckabee. Brand new podcast, Hemmer Time, in-depth conversation with Howard Kurtz about the media bias. Is it legitimate or is it not? I think Kurtz's answers and analysis based on 30 years of experience in studying this stuff is very interesting. So you can check it out online right now.
They're always great. Will do. Thank you. All right. So we've got a brand new document dump that Ed Henry is in the process of pouring through from WikiLeaks. The Clintons cannot get out from under the wave of controversy and damaging headlines. Should they politically have dealt with this a long time ago instead of 2 weeks before the election? What the campaign is talking about.
Also, this Fox News alert, keep a very close eye on this. The battle to retake Mosul from the hands of ISIS. Reports that the most dangerous part of the whole mission is about to begin. The threat the coalition now faces inside that town.
Many people wondered how ISIS was able to withstand and hide from the US-led airstrikes. Well, this is how. They've dug deep underground. They crisscrossed the land, allowing ISIS fighters to move unseen from one location to the next, launching attacks from hidden positions.
Another violent day as the Syrian crisis continues to unfold on the world stage. This time, the Syrian rescue group known as the White Helmets is reporting that an airstrike outside a school in the rebel-held province of Idlib has killed at least 17 people. Most of the dead, sadly, are children. That happening outside of a Syrian school as it goes on in and around Aleppo. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis there getting more dire with each passing day. Syrian government forces continuing their assault on the city. Bombings have gotten so rampant there that the people say they have stopped trying to rehang any glass panels because the shards are killing too many people. The U.S. has accused Russia of collaborating with Syria in this bombing campaign. Syrian opposition forces say the devastation in Aleppo has only increased since Russia got involved.
Another alert now on the operation to liberate Mosul. Coalition forces are moving closer. We're being told that hundreds of ISIS fighters armed with suicide belts are getting ready to defend that city. John Huddy's live at the Middle East Bureau watching that from Jerusalem. John, hello. What's the latest?
Well, Bill, we're hearing that ISIS militants are sending in death squads, basically executioners, to kill people, civilians, men, women, and children, as they're trying to flee these villages, and then as those ISIS militants are heading back into Mosul. At this point, Kurdish and Iraqi troops have recaptured an estimated 90 villages surrounding Mosul thus far. They're going into two areas, Tabzawa and Bartella, that are also very important. That's where the front line is at this point, or it's a major offensive to retake those two villages as those troops continue to push closer towards the city. And it's believed the fighting will intensify as Kurdish and Iraqi troops push closer into Mosul. We've been told of ISIS suicide squads from Syria heading to Mosul to launch attacks, be it with explosive belts, car bombs, roadside bombs, that kind of thing. It's already been happening. We've seen that, but we're hearing hundreds of these suicide attackers are on their way or may already be in Mosul. We're waiting for more information on that front. As mentioned, ISIS has been executing people, men, women, children. But there are also stories coming out about, you may have heard this, the so-called sniper of Mosul, or Mosul sniper. Basically, what appears to be a gunman waging a one-man war on ISIS. In fact, Bill, we're told that this sniper, the Mosul sniper, took out an ISIS executioner as he was about to put a bullet into the head of a teenage boy. This is the fight very much continues.
Yeah, indeed it does. John Huddy from our Middle East Bureau there. John, thank you.
The WikiLeaks releases exposing the latest evidence of Hillary Clinton's questionable political practices. She's got a cloud of controversy that looms over her career when you look back over the course of it. Travelgate, Whitewater in the early days. Then, of course, you have Benghazi and the allegations of pay to play that have come out throughout this campaign during her time at the State Department. Then you've got the private email server and new evidence that her longtime friend, Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, influenced the FBI's investigation with a very large campaign contribution to the wife of a person who worked in the FBI's Washington field office. So it goes on and on. Brad Blakeman joins us now. He served as Deputy Assistant to President George W. Bush. Jessica Tarlov is a Democratic pollster and senior political strategist at Schoen Consulting. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
You know, I guess the reason to look back at that list is because if Hillary Clinton wins this election, no doubt we will find ourselves back in the kind of situation that we were in the last time the Clintons were in the White House, where you have just investigation after investigation after investigation, Brad.
There's no doubt about it. And Hillary Clinton, if she is the president, is not going to have a honeymoon. It's going to be a hangover, because there are a lot of scandals that have yet to be investigated as part of the oversight of the Congress. So, you know, we're going to start where we left off with Hillary Clinton, and that's the sad part. And then the Clintons are prone to scandal anyway in their governance. So, in my opinion, the Bonnie and Clyde of political politics would be back in the White House and keep the Congress busy with investigation after investigation.
I mean, starting with the most recent, Jessica, there's no doubt, regardless of the outcome of this election, that somebody is going to have to look into the FBI's investigation into the Hillary Clinton matter, because the more we learn about it, the more it looks like the fix was in, that there was never going to be an indictment, and that perhaps Terry McAuliffe made a very large donation to the spouse of an FBI higher up, perhaps in order to make sure that that didn't happen.
Well, the timing of that doesn't really add up with him influencing the investigation. Terry McAuliffe made the donation in March of 2015. The probe started July 2015.
All right, let me ask you a question about that, Jessica. Let's just assume for a moment that you're running for office, okay, and that your husband is involved in an investigation. So you get the money. Hold on. You get the money into your coffers, right? You lose the election. Then your husband comes home and says, "Oh, guess what? So I'm now in charge of this Hillary Clinton email investigation." Wouldn't you say to him, gee, given that donation, don't you think you better recuse yourself?
That conversation, I understand. I was just highlighting the timing of it. I understand completely what you're saying and what Brad is saying. And yes, there were a lot of scandals in the 1990s, and I'm sure Jason Chaffetz is chomping at the bit to continue with this. There were also a lot of scandals in the Bush years, and unfortunately, I think that we do have a D.C. corruption problem, and that goes across for both parties, and certainly doesn't exclude Donald Trump, even though he wasn't a politician until a year and a half ago. So I do understand the concerns. This is something that has certainly hurt Hillary Clinton's numbers. But if we look at the polls right now, it looks like she's going to be the president, and that people will have to be tough about these issues, more transparent, and following up on them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look back at this FBI situation, the more we learn about it, the more troubling on so many levels it becomes. You know, when you realize that there was no grand jury investigation, and you now learn about the president's awareness that she was sending him emails that did not say state.gov on them, and there was 2,000 classified emails that went back and forth from her home server in Chappaqua, some of which may and probably did, according to the Cheryl Mills email, include the president on here. So why, Brad, was there never, it appears, a serious investigation into how this information became so exposed?
Because I think the FBI and the Justice Department had made a political decision when it should have been a professional decision to truly treat her as anybody else would be treated. But look, the FBI said she'll never be tried in a court of law. The Justice Department concurred, and now she's going to be tried in the court of public opinion. And if she becomes the president, she'll be the most damaged president coming into presidency, because not only is the past scandals going to hurt her, but she's going to have a problem governing in this environment. So this is all self-created. The Clintons brought this upon themselves, and the government did not do their duty.
Yeah. And what about the complicit nature of the media in that, Jessica? The fact that these stories have not been laid out in the kind of detail that allows people to really understand. You know, if the FBI decided not to indict someone before they really did a thorough investigation, and that's what a lot of people believe may have happened here. That is a serious undermining of the American system of justice, is it not?
It is a serious undermining of the American system of justice. Obviously, James Comey would say that they did do a thorough investigation. And there are a lot of people out there who do agree with him, who say that they wouldn't have recommended to indict people who've been in that position. But what I would say is that I understand these concerns, and I think it's something that's going to be a tough challenge for Hillary Clinton going forward. I would say that, you know, if we look at her margin of win, if she does win, and if she does have a clear mandate, you know, over 50%, et cetera, then I think that she's going to have a lot to work with. There are Republicans like Johnny Isakson who have spoken out about their ability to work with her and how bipartisan she was when she was in the Senate. So I'm hopeful looking forward. It's not like a lot of people are excited to work with Donald Trump. So we have to see what happens, but I do understand these concerns completely.
Oh, they're not going to go away, unfortunately. Jessica and Brad, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Donald Trump in Florida saying it is now or never.
This is the last time we're going to have a chance. 4 years, it's over. It's over. In 4 years, you don't have a chance. This is it. And we're really close. We're going to win Florida.
So brand new polling numbers from that state this morning. What is the state of the race 13 days to go? We'll break it down for you on the board in a moment. Next.
Cleveland and Chicago, game 1 of the World Series, a series that has been a lifetime in the making. Did you watch last night?
If I pitch, can you catch? Will you hold?
What do you want?
I'm with the Indians.
Well, that's my team because I'm from Ohio.
Oh,
See,
well, then I think we need to have a little conversation.
All right, we'll cover that during the break, all right?
Because we got a different impression.
All right. Well, stand by now. Hang on. That's a tease.
We're going to win the state of Florida. We're going to win back the White House. We are going to win Florida. And by the way, the lines at the voting booths are record.
Well, Donald Trump now feeling optimistic. That was him in Florida yesterday. He also told us that Florida is vital, as you well know. What's the true state of the race in the home stretch? Tom Bevan, executive editor of Real Clear Politics. Tom, how you doing? Nice to see you, and welcome back here. I mean, this is what you do for a living, so chew on this one, right? This is Bloomberg. This is Florida. This is today. Trump at 45, Clinton 43, four-way race. What do you think?
Yeah, before I get started, Bill, let me just say I'll take any action you've got going with the Cubs here in Chicago. So
right, okay.
Just want to make that clear.
Let's 10-4 on that. You got it.
Yeah, no, good news for Trump this morning. This Bloomberg poll shows him up 2 points in Florida. It is crucial for him to have any chance of getting to 270. He's got to win. He's got to win Florida and a couple of other states. He's now closed the gap in our Real Clear Politics average in Florida to under 2%. It's Clinton's lead there is 1.6 percentage points if you include the other polls. So we've seen this race tighten in the last couple of days. Our national average is now under 5 points as well. So he's not completely out of it yet with a couple weeks to go. He's still behind the 8 ball, and he's still trailing in a lot of these key battleground
states. Okay, this is the electoral map from 12 years ago, all right? Republicans in red, Democrats in blue. That was Bush and Kerry. This is the map in 2008. With Obama beating McCain. This is the map 4 years ago. And 4 years ago in Florida, when you think about the importance of 29 electoral votes, Tom, I think even the Trump team would admit you can't win the White House unless you win Florida at 29, right? Obama won the state with about 50,000 raw votes. Very close 4 years ago. He did much better against McCain 4 years prior to that. It was a margin of about 200,000 votes. You look at the schedule so far, Tom, this week. Hillary Clinton had an event there yesterday in Florida, again today. Trump was there with 5 events in the past 2 days. You can see now, when they look at the map, he either wins Florida and keeps his hopes alive, or that's where she blocks. Go.
No, that's exactly right. And they both got their strategies in Florida. Hillary Clinton's in Miami. She's in the South. She wants to run up the score there. Donald Trump's in the North, trying to run up his score with voters in the Panhandle. And also, they're both battling over the Orlando, Tampa, Hillsborough County area, that I-4 corridor. This is traditionally how the state splits. That's why you saw Trump in Tampa the other day. Just the other day with like 20,000 people. They think they're ahead there, but it's going to be close. It's going to be. I think Florida is going to be very, very close, and it is crucial. I mean, yeah. As I said, Trump can't win without it. Hillary can, but Trump cannot.
Yeah, she can. You're right about that. We crunch the numbers every day. We average the polls, and this is what we did yesterday on our scorecard here. We moved Iowa from a lean Republican to a toss-up. We took Indiana from a solid red to a lean Republican, and that congressional district in Maine went from a lean Republican to a toss-up as well. Does that square with where you are?
I think we have, pretty much. We've got Iowa. I think Trump's lead there is about 4.5 points. Haven't had a whole lot of new polling out of Iowa. Would love to see some more there. I think the Maine district was leaning for Trump, but now might have slipped a little bit as he's lost ground in some of these other states. So that's roughly where we have it. Again, he's trailing and needs to close the gap here in the final couple of weeks. There are some indications that might be happening, but we still got a long way to go and looking for a lot more data to sort of confirm that.
Right. Another big story will be balance of power, Tom, and that's the Senate right now, 54 Republican, 46 Dem. 2 of those are independents. They caucus with the Democrats. Back to that Bloomberg poll in Florida. Rubio has a 10-point lead in Florida.
Yeah, that was an eye-popping number. A lot of other polls had that race a lot closer. Democrats have been they've been having this internal discussion about whether to pour resources in there or let that race go. This poll might actually give the upper hand to the folks who think that race is now gone, but we'll see. I mean, Rubio he needs to hold on to that if Republicans want to have a chance of holding on to the Senate, and he seems to be in good shape, at least as of right now.
10 points is a whole lot in a race like this. Yeah. Tom Bevan, thank you very much out of Chicago. Good luck to your Cubbies, my friend.
All right, go Cubs. Thanks.
All right, you're going to enjoy this series there.
Sounds like you and I should maybe have a wager with Tom Bevan. No, I never changed.
Did I change?
It sounded like you were supporting the Cubs the other day.
Well, since 1908.
Because I said, are you going to go with the Indians because you're from Ohio? And you kind of went,
kind of have
like you were thinking about it.
Well, I mean, within the state bounds, the lines, I got to support my team. But then Bowling came out yesterday and issued this huge challenge. He was like, I'm taking the Cubs, Emmer. What are you going to do? I said, I'll take the Indians.
So you're taking but there was a thought process, is what you're saying. You were not all in from the get-go.
I'm coming around to it.
Okay. Well, I rest my case.
Yes.
It's the Cincinnati-Cleveland thing, which I didn't know
no doubt.
Before I spent some time in Cleveland over the course of the last year, but now I get it. So that's what I'm reading between the tea leaves here.
Anyway,
so
good luck.
It's like a Giants-Jets thing. It's okay. We get it. All right. So millions of people have already cast their ballots, which there's one of them. Who is that guy? Do you recognize him? That would be Justin Timberlake. But that picture could get him in some hot water, and we would explain why. So one gentleman known as Justin Timberlake rocking the vote already, but he caused a little bit of noise. The selfie of Timberlake casting his ballot in Tennessee getting a lot of attention because you know what? Not legal. You're allowed to do that in Tennessee. You can't take your picture at the polling place. He is among the 10 million people who have already voted in this election. Shannon Bream here now with more. So did he actually break the law? And welcome. Great to have you in New York.
Well, it is great to see you too. This is just one of those things that it's a 2016 election story now because everybody loves a selfie and everybody wants to get out there and do this. So listen, he risked 30 days in jail and a $50 fine because this is a misdemeanor in Tennessee. He was trying to do the right thing. I think he's trying to encourage people to get out and vote, and the Tennessee authorities say they appreciate that, but this could be an issue. Let's take a look, because across the country, it's actually mixed. There are states where, there may be some guidance on this, there may not be. So, this is where they're mixed or unclear, these states. And you can see Tennessee is in there. But where ballot selfies are allowed, check it out, see if your state is on there, all those in green. Where not allowed, check it out here so you can stay out of trouble, red. Don't take a selfie in the ballot box there. There was some talk about whether he was going to be in trouble in Tennessee. So there was initially a response that it was being investigated. But here's what we have from the communications director for the Office of Shelby County District Attorney. They said the statement released earlier Tuesday by my office regarding Justin Timberlake and an investigation was incorrect and released without my knowledge. No one in our office is currently investigating this matter, nor will we be using our limited resources to do so. So I think JT skates jail for now.
So I can legally take a picture of myself in New Jersey. That's what I learned.
Did we see on the map?
Oh, no, it's illegal. Illegal in New Jersey. It's in the red, right?
Listen, if something happens, I will bail you out. I will put my law degree to good use.
So tell our viewers, because you're going to be watching a lot of the social media interaction, which is such a huge part of life and elections now during the course of this. How can they get involved?
Anyone who wants to be part of our coverage legally, do a little Google search, check it out. Just use the hashtag Fox News 2016. For example, we already have people sending stuff in. We have Dave sent this in. This is his mother registering to vote for the very first time at 82. We want to see your I voted sticker. Anything that's legal for you to show us. Fox News 2016. That is your hashtag.
Thank you, Shannon. Looking forward to having you here throughout the big election season. Bill?
He might be able to afford that fine. There is more on the WikiLeaks matter about how much President Obama really knew about Clinton's server and the State Department. And when did he know it? Breaking news right now, more emails being released from WikiLeaks. We are going through them as we speak. Details and headlines next.
A manhunt is underway for 4 days now for the man accused of violent rampage in Oklahoma. Police say that 38-year-old Michael Vance murdered 2 of his relatives, an aunt and uncle, and shot 3 other people, posting live videos on social media while he was on the run. Police are now saying that he also has a hit list of people that he is targeting, and he is out there somewhere. They are very concerned about the safety of those people. He was last seen on Monday in western Oklahoma. We'll get you a live report coming up on that ongoing manhunt later this hour. In the meantime, there are brand new revelations that show a frantic Clinton campaign struggling to come up with an acceptable explanation for Hillary Clinton's use of her private email server. And their first reaction says a lot about what they really thought about this, although she seemed to shrug it off when she first came out and spoke about it that day at the UN. Lot to dig into here. Welcome, everybody. Brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. WikiLeaks also revealing the Clinton campaign was sounding alarms after the president said this about the private server on CBS.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
The same time everybody else learned it through news reports.
So from the very beginning, this is what we're learning. Clinton advisor Philip Raines admitting, quote, there is just no good answer. We need to gut through the process phase, get them all out there, and let the content do the talking. End quote. Ed Henry's going to do the talking right now to D.C. Ed, good morning to you. We know the president's account is being challenged, but just in the last few minutes, there is a new email suggesting that Clinton's own advisors knew privately this was far worse than they let on. What have you learned?
Yeah, and you just alluded to it. Look, this is breaking this hour. This is now round 19 of John Podesta's emails put out there by WikiLeaks. Significant, the one you just mentioned from Philippe Reines, March 7th, 2015. That date is so significant. It's 3 days before Hillary Clinton finally addressed the media at the United Nations. And what did she say then? She said, this is no big deal. This was a matter of convenience. I just wanted one device. The server is being blown out of proportion. Everything is fine. It was safe. It was secure. And Philippe Reines was by her side at the State Department, now an outside advisor to the campaign. And he is saying just the opposite in private. There is just no good answer. And you know who also believed that? Cheryl Mills. The same day, in fact, when we cross-reference this, March 7th, 2015, she sees or hears about that interview with the president on CBS you just mentioned, and she reads the president's interview and suggests that this is wrong. She fires off an email declaring, quote, we need to clean this up. He has emails from her, meaning Clinton. They do not say state.gov, meaning Mills, who was chief of staff at the State Department, knew that Secretary Clinton and the president had exchanged work emails on her personal email address. So his answer set off alarm bells, as you said, because they read it to mean that he had not told the whole truth there. Now, Josh Earnest, the president's spokesman, came out yesterday and said the opposite. He said, quote, the president did not suggest he hadn't traded emails with her. Of course, the president had possession of Secretary Clinton's email address, but he did not have any knowledge of where her server was located or what sort of arrangements had been made to store her email. That from White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest. So he's splitting that, saying he was answering a question about the email address, about the server, not about the email address. Look, the very bottom line is, if he knew it was a personal email address, didn't know about the server, here is the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, trading emails with his Secretary of State. He doesn't know whether it's a secure server or not, number one, and number two, Some of these emails we learned from another John Podesta email, remember, are now been claimed under executive privilege, so we may never see.
Does this come back to server email? Is that the difference? Is it is, was, were? I mean,
right. Whether
is that
he
where
was
this is going?
Yeah, Bill Plant's question, a very good one, was when did you first learn about the email system? So he didn't say address and he didn't say server. The president decided to answer, I didn't know about, I learned about it from news reports, and his spokesman is choosing he meant learned about the server, not the email address. So you're right, it's sort of splitting hairs maybe, but the very bottom line is another email from John Podesta. He called all of this in private a hot mess. That's probably the most accurate description.
I would agree with that. Thank you very much. Ed Henry, get back to work there. More headlines. We'll come back to you, okay? Thank you, Ed. Here's Martha.
All right, so clearly all of this raises new questions about President Obama's knowledge of Hillary Clinton's email situation, as it was put. As we've been hearing, the Clinton campaign knew from the start that they had a problem with all of this, no matter how unworried she appeared to be when she was in public. Steve Hayes, a senior writer for the Weekly Standard and a Fox News contributor. Steve, good morning to you.
Morning, Martha.
Let's look at a quote from the Wall Street Journal piece this morning. We suppose a president wouldn't pay close attention to the email addresses of his cabinet officers, though that lack of state.gov was sure a red flag. The fact that he said he didn't know about the server may also have protected him from an FBI interview. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think they're right. I think they're giving the president the benefit of the doubt. And I think there are basically two scenarios here. Either the president lied when he said he didn't know about the private server and her private email address, or the president was telling the truth. If he lied, that was certainly the understanding of the Clinton team as reflected in these Podesta emails. They thought the president had said something that was either false or incorrect, and it's why they panicked, and it's why Cheryl Mills sent an email saying that they had to clean it up. If the president was telling the truth, it raises all sorts of additional questions. I mean, if you take the White House claims at face value that the president just didn't realize that he was emailing with Secretary Clinton on an unsecure server, you have to ask, did the president not see that this was a non-state.gov email address? And if so, didn't that raise any questions about whether his communications with his top foreign policy advisor were secure? If he didn't make that recognition, did he ever ask anybody about whether those communications would be secure? And if not, is he engaged in those kind of communications with anybody else right now? I mean, is he emailing somebody's Gmail address or another unsecure email address as we speak?
You know, I mean, we know that John Podesta was concerned about emails that came to and from the president, because he said after the subpoena order came in from Trey Gowdy, they said, well, we have to find out what's in there that's to and from the president, which, as you pointed out last night, Steve, broadcast to everyone, there were decisions being made. Which ones we're going to turn over, which ones we are not going to turn over. No one gave them the authority to make those decisions.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, look, what we're seeing here in these Podesta emails, again, assuming that the emails that were stolen from John Podesta's account, published by WikiLeaks, are in fact accurate, what we're seeing here is the inside nature of a cover-up. I mean, this is a cover-up. I don't think there's any question about the fact that it's a cover-up. They were attempting to cover up what Secretary Clinton had done with her server, whom she communicated with, the kinds of things she discussed, what emails would be turned over and would not be turned over. It is a glimpse into the inside of a cover-up that we don't normally get to see.
And it's shocking, I think, when you look at those two things, that John Podesta said, we need to make sure that there aren't any in that batch that are to and from the president. And he says he can exert his executive privilege there, which may be true. But he's concerned about the back and forth between the two of them there. And then you put that with the question from Bill Plant, where the president says he was not aware that she was using an outside server. And you have to ask yourself, if you're working on the FBI investigation, those two things alone would put question marks in your head. Well, I guess we need to sit down and ask the president a few questions. No?
Well, I mean, you would certainly think, and two additional points. One, the president gave much the same answer to Steve Kroft in an interview that he did with Steve Kroft that he gave to Bill Plant. And two, remember, this is only one slice of this cover-up, of this controversy. The other part we saw last week in the release of the FBI 302s, the interview summaries from the FBI, where you had a senior State Department official, Patrick Kennedy, trying to pressuring FBI officials into changing classification of emails so as to protect Secretary Clinton. I mean, this whole thing stinks, and we're seeing it from the inside, and again, in a way that we really never get a chance to see.
Yes, I mean, so true. And you see now, as you point out, the scramble that was happening. So she's, coming before the American people saying, I just had one device. It made it easier for me. But there is a scramble and panic, I think, is not too strong a word, based on these emails and on Patrick Kennedy's statements as well, to figure out how to cover this whole thing, because they knew it was politically very dangerous for her. And that goes back, I think, again, Steve, to the question of, given all of that, did the FBI give this whole thing short shrift?
I mean, I don't think there's any question. The FBI has to be embarrassed when it looks at the interview summaries that have come out. Now we get to see these Podesta emails, and we see how the Clinton team itself was reacting to what they knew was not just likely to be a minor controversy, but a full-blown scandal. I mean, Cheryl Mills doesn't send an email saying we need to clean this up unless she's worried about this becoming a scandal. And it was reflected, I think, as Ed Henry pointed out, 3 days later when Secretary Clinton went out and made her first public statement. I remember discussing it at the time. The takeaway there was, if there was a good answer to why she had done what she had done, we would have heard it. And the fact that we didn't ever hear a good answer from Hillary Clinton, and the fact that you can go back now and look at the statements one after another from that press conference that she gave at the United Nations, almost all of which have turned out to be false, suggests just how deep a hole they were in. And I think if you're on the Clinton team right now, you have to be looking around, smiling, saying, I can't believe we got away with this.
I mean, can you imagine their relief when she was interviewed on the weekend before the 4th of July for a couple of hours by agents? Jim Comey wasn't even in the room for that interview. And then a couple days later, he comes out and says, okay, that's done. There's nothing there. So, there's a lot more. Given what we know, there's more to know in this story, to be sure.
No question.
Steve, thank you very much. Steve Hayes in Washington.
So Obamacare blowing up on the campaign trail after that bombshell about millions of Americans about to see their premiums go through the roof. Will health care now be the October surprise? Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Trump advisor, is in studio next on that.
Plus, with 2 weeks to go, Donald Trump severs ties with the fundraising arm of the GOP. How this could affect the down-ballot scramble to keep control of the House and Senate.
Also, Bill O'Reilly taking on the charge of a rigged American political system. We'll debate that in a moment. Fair and balanced.
Mr. Trump should accept whatever happens at that vote unless there's compelling evidence of corruption. Undermining our electoral system is not a patriotic thing.
Repealing Obamacare and stopping Hillary's health care takeover is one of the single most important reasons that we must win on November 8th.
Donald Trump doubling down on calls to repeal and replace Obamacare as the White House admits that millions of Americans will see their costs skyrocket in the coming year. And most of those are coming forward now.
Yes.
I mean, now is when people find out how much it's going to cost for next year. An average of 25%. Some places are seeing 116%. If you look at a place like Arizona, about 1 in 5 consumers will have to choose plans from a single insurer. And while 15 insurers will be joining the exchanges, 83 say that they cannot afford to do that plan anymore. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump advisor, joins us now. Mayor, always good to see you. Good morning to you.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, I knew Obamacare was a failure from day one. Yeah, we all did. And then he lied to us. Keep your doctor, keep your insurance, lie. It's going to cost less money. How could we possibly have believed? How can you cover people with pre-existing conditions and have it cost less money? And I believe in covering, but I don't believe in lying to people. So the whole financial basis for this program was done by a bunch of liberal idiots who have never run a business, never run an economic program in their entire lives. The rollout was incompetent, and now it's a disaster. And what does she want to do? She wants to increase it. She wants to go to single payer, and as she told the Canadian bank, for a fee of $225,000, the speech she tried to keep hidden, she wants to go to, these are her words, not mine, socialized medicine.
All right, so now, we're hearing a lot about this from Donald Trump with 13 days to go. There was a very well articulated editorial a month ago from Kim Strassel in the Wall Street Journal saying Donald Trump needs to be 100% on this story. He needs to be out in front of it. He needs to pound it day in, day out. Why didn't he?
Well,
I know he brought it up,
I don't know,
but why didn't he?
Bunch of other things to pound during that period of time. Plus, he was playing defense. Plus, you had the WikiLeaks things coming out and the total corruption of the FBI, Justice Department investigation, the revelation that the number 2 guy in the investigation, his wife, got $650,000 in campaign contributions from none other than that $3 Bill McAuliffe.
We talked to him about that yesterday. But I'm just saying, like, when you look at a place like Arizona, which should be locked up red state.
I agree with you.
How is Arizona on the fence, given the border and given health care?
It won't be. It won't be on the fence. He's going to win Arizona. When you look at Obamacare, you look at the border, he will win it. It won't be as close as big as it usually has because the Hispanic vote has grown, but the vote is still a secure border and with getting bombed by Obamacare. And you know what? It's left out of the story. The deductibles. It's one thing to say your premium is going to go up 50%. Another thing to say your deductible is going to be $5,000.
Which basically means you don't have any health care.
Right. Who's going to use it? I don't use the only time I ever used that amount of money for health care is when I had prostate cancer. Other than that, and I'm not a young man, I don't use $5,000 a year in health care.
Yeah. So you are making the argument, and others in the Trump camp are making the argument, that the polls are all wrong. That people are going to be shocked that these pollsters, I would imagine, are going to be out of business if they're all wrong.
Well, they have been before.
Come November 9th. What are you basing that on?
Okay. I sat here at Fox, and then I went over to NBC and CBS in 2008, and none other than some of your bosses told me the election was over and the Fox poll showed that Kerry was going to be the president. I was on NBC with Senator Kennedy, and Tom Brokaw and Senator Kennedy were picking the Kerry cabinet. It was over. The exit polls had him winning. They had him winning Pennsylvania by 19 and this one by...
And then Ohio happened.
And then Ohio happened. I'm sorry. I don't believe in polls. Every election I ever won, I outperformed the polls. Even ones I lost. I was down by 12, I lost by 3. I was down by 4, I won by 4. I was ahead by 12, I won by 18. So I've always overperformed the polls. They've never been accurate in my case.
All right. So what about ground game? Because that's the big argument for Hillary Clinton.
And this is states.
I understand, but Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania looks like it's going for her. But then he's got to have either New Hampshire, Colorado, or Wisconsin.
Well, exposure there. So he spent the reason that Florida flipped and he's now 3 points ahead is he spent 3 or 4 days there. He got his message out there.
Are there enough days left in this calendar, though, to get to all those states?
There's enough time left, and then he's got a couple of surrogates like me, and we'll separate out. I'm going to spend the weekend in New Hampshire. I'm going to actually go from Dallas, where I have to give a speech, to University of North Texas.
Why Texas is on the bubble?
Oh, I just talked to one of my good friends in Texas who says that's the biggest joke in the world. They can't find... They can't find a Hillary supporter in Texas, or somebody who's willing to be a Hillary supporter in Texas. But I'm going to be in Texas tomorrow. Then I'm going to go to Nevada, Colorado, and come back through New Hampshire. And I'll do my own campaigning, so it won't be the 10,000 that he gets, but maybe I can get 2,000 or 3,000.
Listen, call us from the road, because we would love to hear from you how things
and then I think he's got a surprise or two that you're going to hear about in the next 2 days.
All right.
I mean, I'm talking about some pretty big surprise.
Oh, yeah, I heard you say that this morning. What do you mean?
You'll see.
Stay tuned. Rudy Giuliani, you're lucky because we got to go. I'm out of time. Otherwise, I keep pressing you.
We're not going to go down, and we're certainly not going to stop fighting. We got a couple things up our sleeve that should turn this around in a way that even the liberal pollsters will get to see it.
Rudy Giuliani.
Okay.
Stay tuned, folks. More to come.
Call that a tease in our business. Fox News alert now on a manhunt in its 4th day now in Oklahoma. Police searching for an accused killer as we learn more about his alleged plans.
Now our gates are locked, our doors are locked, and everybody's just locked and loaded, ready in case we need to protect our family.
So here we go now. Donald Trump about to appear at his new hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. As he has said for some time, it came under budget, and it beat the deadline. You just heard Rudy Giuliani, and now we have this new poll out of Florida, the battleground. Bloomberg shows that Donald Trump has a slight edge on Hillary Clinton. He's up 2 points, 45-43. Mark Thiessen, fellow for the American Enterprise Institute, Washington Post columnist and Fox News contributor, and Ebony Williams is a political analyst, attorney, and Fox News contributor. A good day to both of you. There's a suggestion this thing is over already. Mark, as you analyze that, how do you react to something like that with 13 days left?
It's never over until the last vote is counted. I mean, there could be a world-changing event between now and the next 2 weeks. There could be any number of things that could happen. And look, I used to work for Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina, and Senator Helms always used to say, I never won a poll or lost an election. There are a lot of people in North Carolina who would not tell a pollster that they were voting for Jesse Helms, but they ended up voting for him. And it's entirely possible that there's a Helms effect in the Trump polls, that there are a lot of people who are not telling pollsters they're going to support Donald Trump because, especially as these videos are coming out with the groping and other allegations, it's not politically correct to be a Trump supporter if you're not part of his hardcore. So there could be a little bit of effect. Whether it's enough to make up the difference in the polls is yet to be seen. But 538 gives him about an 18% chance of winning, and that gives Hillary about 80% chance of winning. But that's not a sure bet. 18% is pretty good odds. So it's not over yet.
Ebony, how do you see it?
I would think, Bill, it would be a great mistake on the part of anybody, particularly the Clinton campaign, to be overconfident and think anything was over at this point. A lot can change in 13 days. Also, I actually don't think that the Clinton campaign, now many in mainstream media and whatnot might think it's over, but her campaign doesn't. I know that because she's deploying Elizabeth Warren to Meredith College in North Carolina, as Mark spoke to. That's an important state, and they're trying desperately to take advantage of early voting there because she knows it's not a sure thing and it's certainly not in the bag.
Well, as you know, early voting goes to the Democrats historically, and the day of voting goes to the Republicans. And Mitt Romney won the vote on Election Day. Barack Obama beat him in the early voting tally, and that gave him a second term. Mark, what about this Obamacare story? Is that the kind of surprise that could swing this election? Yes or no?
I don't know if it's going to swing the election. It certainly is going to have an impact. I mean, you look, for example, Hillary Clinton is making a big push in Arizona. We just learned that premiums are going to go up in Arizona 116%. That is enormous difference. And it's true, the same is true in other battleground states. You've got premiums going up in Florida by 17%, Maine 21%, North Carolina 24%, Iowa 20%, Ohio 13%. So this certainly could have an impact. But where it really will have an impact, Bill, is probably in these close Senate races and the ability of the GOP to keep the Senate. For example, Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey's in a really tough race, really close race to keep his Senate seat. Premiums are going up by 33%. The Republican Senatorial Committee's got an ad up with his opponent saying how proud every Democrat should be about Obamacare. North Carolina, Richard Burr in a tough race. Missouri as well. So it could have an impact in those Senate races.
Ebony, what do you think of the Obamacare effect here?
So two things on this, Bill. There's the truth. Mark's right about the unpopularity of Obamacare. It was unpopular when it passed, and it remains unpopular now with these new premium hikes, even more so. But, separate issue, how will it affect these races? The White House, I just don't think it's going to have a lot of effect. Healthcare isn't even in the top 3 in terms of when voters list their concerns for this election. There's also now, down ballot, again, I do think Mark might have a point there, but this is going to be about, and I think Mr. Trump missed a huge opportunity to campaign harder on this. If this was an election about policy, this would be a different conversation we were having. You know, well, it's a bit late in the game on that. He certainly should have been making those arguments sooner. This has now been about who Mr. Trump is as a man, for better or for worse.
Thanks to both of you. Ebony, Mark.
Thank you.
Onward, 10:30 here in New York.
Thank you, guys.
So there's a new report that says that the Trump campaign is done with fundraising for the Republican Party. Is this usual at this stage of the game, or is the nominee raising concerns for the Republican Party? Plus this.
He tied him up, went around, struck him out, getting over.
Andrew Miller keeping the Cubs scoreless. Game 1 of the World Series, we're off and running. Miller's calling it a grind. It's good for America. Good for the game. We're wheels up for Game 2. Coming up shortly.
Investigators say that a man wanted for killing 2 people and shooting 3 others has a hit list. Oklahoma police are still searching for Michael Vance after his shooting spree on Sunday night. Adam Housley's got the latest for us from our West Coast Bureau. So, Adam, where do they believe he is headed now?
Yeah, they think he's headed to Vegas primarily because of that hit list. Apparently, the hit list has a couple of more names on it. The people may or may not be in Las Vegas. The last they saw him, he was actually in western Oklahoma, near the Texas border, but they believe that's the direction he was headed in a car that he carjacked. Basically, police responded to shots fired at a mobile home park in Oklahoma. When they went there, this guy came out firing with an AK-47, shot 2 officers, took the patrol car, drove to a different mobile home park, killed his aunt and uncle, nearly cutting off both of their heads, has shot a gas attendant, also shot a woman that he carjacked and took her Mitsubishi car, and they believe that that's the car he probably is still in as he heads toward Nevada, as far as they know. The FBI is now involved in this whole thing. He actually had a Facebook Live video of his escape. This guy also is out on bond right now for sexual assault allegations, and he also is believed to have some sort of communicable disease that he may attempt to spread. So a lot going on here, a lot of reasons for them to watch and look out for this guy, Martha. They're telling anybody who comes across him, of course, stay away and notify authorities. But the manhunt is on. Martha.
This guy. Adam, thank you.
Donald Trump apparently ending his fundraising efforts for the party. John Roberts reports last hour that, well, Hillary Clinton is doing the same thing for Democrats. So Dana Perino, co-host of The Five, and I'll tell you what on Sundays. She's also the author of the new book, Let Me Tell You About Jasper, How My Best Friend Became America's Dog.
Nice graphic.
How are you?
Great, how are you?
I don't know how you make a living off a dog, but I might have to try it.
He's got a new nickname.
Oh, yeah?
Meal ticket.
Hashtag. Okay, the story I just mentioned, is happening right now. Both candidates are focused on these battlegrounds. You can watch where they go, Dana.
You can know.
It's Florida, it's North Carolina, it's Ohio.
Just as we all knew that those, as you know, you do that when you do the map. 2 years ago, when you started showing the map to people,
right?
And you said these will be the states that it comes down to, and you were exactly right.
And
these are the states it's coming down to.
And they are still the states too.
Yeah.
Republicans are making a last-minute investment in these Senate races.
Right.
What's that tell you?
Well, it's a couple of things. One, Hillary Clinton has done a huge amount of fundraising. As of a month ago, she had done more fundraisers than Obama and Romney combined in 2012. 658 to 59 done by Donald Trump. What do you get with extra money like that? Efforts to do get out the vote, organization, things like that. What Hillary Clinton's team is doing right now is investing a huge amount of money into red states where they think that they might be able to upset some of the Republican Senate candidates, like in Missouri. They're going to try in Indiana, though I don't think they'll be successful in Indiana. So what's happened is that you see that Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate Majority Leader, through the direction of outside money, whatever, and the RNC is putting money to save Republican seats. The position you'd prefer to be in at this point is to be one where you are not having to defend Republican seats, but that you are doing what the Democrats are doing, and you would be going after Democrats and trying to make sure that you keep the majority in the Senate.
Yeah, you know what the importance of that is, being a Republican yourself.
For a while.
What do you know?
Maybe. I don't know. We might be breaking news. I don't know.
Are you
I'm waiting to see.
Are you one of the write-in folks right now?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay, all right. Well, you don't need to tell me, and I'm not going to ask you. But what I do want to know from you is whether or not you think the voters consciously think about a divided government.
I do think so. And you mentioned, I'll tell you what, the podcast TV show that I do with Chris Starwell, in his data dive this past weekend, he showed that in years where you've had a big disparity between the presidency, so for example, 1984, if you did the map in 1984, the only state that you would have had to turn blue on your map that night would have been Minnesota. So, but what else happened that night? Actually, Democrats picked up 2 seats in the Senate.
Interesting.
So there is precedent for people understanding that they like checks and balances in government.
1996, Republicans picked up 2 Senate seats in a year that Bob Dole was beaten badly by Bill Clinton. Look at it. There's Bloomberg poll. Marco Rubio, if he is up 10 points in Florida over his challenger, that tells me that Trump's not down 11. Trump's right in that case.
And actually,
for
they don't
Florida.
ever actually speak about each other when they're out on the campaign trail, but Trump and Rubio actually might be helping each other down in Florida. So if you are motivated to go vote for Rubio, you might decide to vote a straight Republican ticket. Or if you go in to vote for Trump, you might say, I might as well help him keep the Senate.
Tell me about the book.
Oh, the book. You are kind enough to ask. It's a book about Jasper. I call him America's dog, not because I think he's the #1 dog in America, but because one day on Red Eye, we were talking about a celebrity. She hates the paparazzi taking pictures of her dog. And he said, would you be like that, Dana? And I said, no, of course not. I want to share my dog with everybody. He can be America's dog, and I'll do all the cleanup. So it's fun. It's got a lot of pictures.
That's where it started.
That's right.
What's Peter think about this?
There's a great story,
What
actually.
an understanding man. Quick,
If you go to dailysignal.com, you can read an excerpt from the book about how Peter got arrested after failing to pay a $25 ticket for walking the dog off the leash, even though he tried to pay the ticket, and it's a bureaucratic nightmare. You talk about the over-criminalization of America. It happened to us, and you can read that chapter on dailysignal.com. It's pretty funny.
Great pictures. See you at 5 o'clock.
Okay, see you
then.
then.
Thank you, Dana.
I read that part. So you know heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and even species. Now Sergeant Reckless the horse is being honored by the Marines for her heroic efforts during the Korean War. National correspondent William Lajeunesse live from Camp Pendleton in California. Good morning to you, William.
Martha, I love this story because I cannot explain why a horse would go up a mountain 51 times, loaded with ammo, wounded all by itself. But I can tell you there are more Marines alive today because of it.
This is the true story of Reckless, the greatest war hero horse in American history.
Sergeant Reckless is the only animal to hold an official rank in the U.S. Armed Forces.
She was one of the boys. She was a Marine. She was there to support us. We supported her.
Korean War vets remember her as the pony they bought in Seoul for $250 to carry ammunition for the recoilless rifle platoon, known as Reckless.
Her handler took her up 3 times. After that, she did it all on her own.
Marines taught her how to avoid communication lines and tripwires and duck at incoming fire.
You wouldn't expect it, but she did.
Reckless earned her stripes one day in 1953. She made 51 round trips alone, under fire, carrying 5 tons of ammunition, over 35 miles of steep hills and trails.
You can never train a horse to do that. That has to be in him.
Despite being wounded twice, once above the eye, once in the ribs, Reckless carried a dozen injured Marines back to safety.
There's a saying in the Marine Corps that you never leave anybody behind, and she never left anybody behind.
Camp Pendleton, California, 1st Marine Division Headquarters. Congratulations are in order for Sergeant Reckless.
Reckless returned stateside, received 2 Purple Hearts, 2 promotions, and a lifetime of food and beer in lieu of salary. She died in 1968.
She's not a horse, she's a Marine, and a true Marine.
So today, the Corps is going to unveil a bronze. I have a sneak peek for you, Martha. We're expecting 500 people here. Reckless is buried only a few miles away. Back to you.
That is a wonderful story, William. Thank you so much.
Good stuff. Nicely done. Is the state of Arizona in a state of change this election? It will be the hardest hit by some of these new Obamacare premiums. How does that play out? We'll talk to the governor, Jan Brewer. She's live on deck next.
And thieves ransack a church office while the Sunday service was underway just steps away.
They were vulnerable, and now they've been violated. You know, that's absolutely a feeling that you get, and so I don't like to look at the video.
So Arizona is a state that is considered up for grabs right now in the presidential race. You've got very tight polls there as we learn that voters will be hardest hit when the new Obamacare premiums kick in next year. Some people could see costs rise 116% in the state of Arizona. President Obama explaining why he thinks that is.
Now, part of this is because Arizona is one of those states that had really low average premiums, among the lowest in the country. So now insurance companies basically are trying to catch up.
Jan Brewer, former governor of Arizona and a Donald Trump supporter, joins us now. Governor, welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Martha.
So let me start by asking you your reaction to what the president said in that soundbite.
He always has an answer for everything. The bottom line is that we know that Obamacare is not working. It's a failed program. Whether he misled the public when he proposed it and it got it passed, and they had to read the bill to find out what was in it, and now the roosters come home to roost. It is a terrible situation that he's placed the American people in. In Arizona, you know, a young man, single, is going to pay $450 a month for his premiums. He can't see see his doctor. He can't have his same carrier. And a family of 4 is going to be almost $1,450 for a family. Now, that is just absolutely outrageous. And I think the public now understands that they weren't telling the truth, and things have really gone askew.
All right. Let me just ask you about the political scene in Arizona right now, because a lot of people look at the map and they assume that Arizona will be a red state. It generally is a red state, and there's this
claimed otherwise. So that means Obama is now into the act. He didn't want to get caught up in the big lie.
So Trump has a very busy schedule today. Senior national correspondent John Roberts following all that live from Washington. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning to you, Martha. We begin in Washington today, where Donald Trump is celebrating his latest accomplishment. The old post office on Pennsylvania Avenue has been retrofitted with Trump Gold and is officially opening today as the Trump International Hotel. Why is this significant? Because Donald Trump likes to use this as an illustration of what he would do should he become president, start running the country, saying that he finished this project a year early and under budget, and would like to do that with a lot of the federal programs, beginning with Obamacare, which he took aim at yesterday after the Obama administration came out and finally acknowledged that people who are enrolled in Obamacare will be looking at double-digit increases in their premiums in the next year. At a big rally in Tallahassee, Florida last night, here's what Donald Trump had to say about that.
Everybody's going to be going up like that. They gave a number of 25% average. They know that's not true. They wanted to try and get out of, get in front. They know that's not true. It's much more. You're going to have 60, 70, 80, 90% increases in Obamacare. We're going to repeal it, and we're going to replace it, and we're going to get you great, great health care at a fraction of the cost.
Donald Trump said in his speech at Gettysburg last Saturday that as part of his 100-day plan, his contract for the American voter, should he be fortunate enough to win the Oval Office, the moment that he walks in the door there, he will begin the process of repealing and replacing Obamacare, saying Hillary Clinton would leave it like it is. President Obama described Obamacare as kind of a starter home. Donald Trump sees it more like Tom Hanks' infamous money pit. Martha?
So, John, what do you make of these reports, based on your reporting, that the Trump campaign is done with fundraising, in particular fundraising that would be channeled to the party? A lot of people jumping on this news today saying that it indicates something about where they believe this race is going. What do you know?
Well, first of all, what I'm hearing from the campaign is that is not true at all. What is true is that Donald Trump will not be headlining any more big money fundraisers. But after tonight, neither will Hillary Clinton. But they are still going to continue.
Edgum big morsel, I would say, a chunk even. You have a situation where if Clinton, and we remember that moment that she had the press conference at the United Nations that was so astonishing, where she basically says, I did it for convenience and quit sweating me, and asked and answered. If they would have done the right thing and not been so arrogant, if they would have come out earlier and said, you know what, we've been asked for these records, and as it turns out, we made a serious error in judgment, there would have been a huge firestorm over it. It would have been enormous. But then you know what would have happened? It would have faded over time. Instead, because of that arrogance, they are dealing with this even still today.
All right, now, President Obama is accused by some of lying. When you go back to that month and the months that followed, was he?
You know what one of the favorite terms at the White House in any administration is called this plausible deniability.
How come?
They don't tell the president things that could be uncomfortable for him. The president can plausibly say that he knew that Hillary Clinton used a non-government email account for some emails to him. That doesn't mean that he necessarily knew that she had a homebrew server in her house running a whole separate email chain and didn't ever use state.gov emails. So he has plausible deniability on that count.
Quickly, do you see why the FBI did not prosecute? Or do you still ask yourself, why not?
James Comey, the FBI director, basically said it in between the lines. His point was, everybody knew. if the first defense witness in this prosecution would be who? The President of the United States, followed by the Secretary of Defense, followed by the head of the NSA, followed by a who's who of the Obama administration, and across the national security apparatus of the federal government, because everybody knew they let her get away with it. And at the end, you can't come back in and say, well, you let her get away with it for years, but now we're going to prosecute her for it. The chief magistrate of the United States knew about it and let her get away.
This can be debated. Okay, now plausible deniability. We're looking for that every day. A little bit of redemption, sir. The Reverend.
You know it.
Chris Starwell. See you soon. Martha.
Bye, brother.
So Donald Trump chewing over all of this as well and seizing on the latest in this email mess that hits both Clinton. He hit both Clinton and President Obama really during a rally yesterday in Florida. Watch this.
In other words, Mills was saying Obama, he had to know that Hillary was using an illegal server. But he
to raise money. Donald Jr. is going to be going out there hosting fundraisers. Reince Priebus, the chairman of the RNC, will be doing that. The RNC told me last night that a lot of the big money is already gone, so they'll be looking for sort of smaller donations, still large. And then, of course, they'll be continuing with their online and direct mail fundraising, which they say is going gangbusters. But both campaigns, after tonight, neither one of the candidates will be out there at those big money fundraisers. So I think this thing got a little bit overwritten, and I do know that Donald Trump's fundraising chairman, Steve Mnuchin, might not have quite characterized it accurately when he was talking to a reporter from the Washington Post. Martha?
Interesting. John, thank you very much.
So Trump was on our program yesterday, and we were talking to him. He was in Miami at Doral, and he talked about the importance of winning Florida. And boy, it is apparent when you look at the schedule. Yeah. All this comes out in a new battleground poll out of Florida this morning, according to Bloomberg. Donald Trump has a slight edge on Hillary Clinton, up by 2 points, 45-43 in that four-way race. And again, you can look at some of the early voting. There's a lot of spin from both sides.
There is.
Democrats are doing it. Republicans are doing it. The early voting can find good news for him, and you can find good news for her. 29 electoral votes in Florida.
I mean, at this point, the only number that really matters is the number that comes through on November 8th and into November 9th. But Florida is crucial, and it is fascinating to watch the reports of these early votes coming in. And Sean Spicer saying that in several of these close states, they're seeing very strong numbers for Republicans in early voting. So we're going to get into this more as we go through the morning. In the meantime, the Trump campaign ramping up charges that the media is in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Watch this.
I got to tell you, most of the people I'm out campaigning with know that it's been 2-on-1 from almost the beginning of this campaign, with the media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her.
So now a new report showing just how much negative coverage is going to each candidate. Mike Huckabee will weigh in on that, plus this.
We are watching this by the day. This is on the outskirts of Mosul. Getting uglier by the day. This battle, ISIS fighters now ready to defend their stronghold with an army of suicide bombers.
I get up every morning, I about got to turn on the television with a stick. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, yeah, I just never even know what's going to be on there. It's like the media, it's like 2-on-1 with the national media doing half of Hillary Clinton's work for her every day.
Don't know how long that stick is, but Mike Pence saying the news outlets are not giving his guy a fair shake. This is we get a new report from the Media Research Center, finding Trump coverage of the 3 broadcast nightly newscasts over the past 3 months has been hostile toward Donald Trump 91% of the time. Now, Mike Huckabee knows the media very well. Former governor of Arkansas, Fox News contributor, Trump supporter, and good day to you, sir, and thanks for coming back. What do you think of the report first on its face? The number seems extremely high. Defend it.
I mean, it's breathtaking, but I don't doubt it. I mean, if you just watch the mainstream media, that's what you see. It's all Donald Trump all the time, and it's all negative. And so, you know, the Media Research Center, what they do, they analyze the total number of minutes that's given, what the anchors say, what the guests say, what the commentators say. They add it up. It's a pretty fair analysis. And 91% of the time, they're speaking negatively about Donald Trump. And it may explain why right now the confidence of the American people in the news media is so much even below Congress. I mean, the media has become about as popular as a whole gang of cockroaches in your kitchen these days.
That's pretty low. That's
it's pretty accurate,
crawling
Bill.
around the tile. Now listen, the comparison to coverage over Clinton's server is not even close. I grant you that. But some of this stuff is coming from Trump anyway, by either the events of the day or something he has said or something from the past.
Look, I'll be the first to tell you that I think sometimes Donald Trump buries his own lead, to use a journalistic term. At Gettysburg the other day, I thought that, he missed an opportunity to focus solely on his reforms by even bringing up the potential lawsuit. Well, as soon as he said that, I said, there's your Sunday talk show headline right there. That's what they're going to be talking about, and sure enough, it was. But that aside, I mean, there's no doubt but that the media will take any and everything that is negative toward Donald Trump, and they will blow it up like it's the 4th of July. But when it comes to taking a look at Hillary Clinton and things that really matter, things like coordinating with her PAC, things like talking about she hopes for
explosive new details on what President Obama knew about Hillary Clinton's email scandal and the campaign's efforts to try and, quote, clean it up. Good morning, everybody. Big show today on a Wednesday. I'm Bill Hemmer, live at America's Newsroom as we get going here. Nice to see you.
Good morning, you
Lucky
too.
white jacket
Thank
there.
you very much.
Great.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. So let's take you through this. It all started when President Obama was asked about the email server issue in March of 2015. Watch this.
Mr. President, when did you first learn that Hillary Clinton used an email system outside the U.S. government for official business while she was Secretary of State?
At the same time, everybody else learned it through news reports.
So we now know that that interview triggered an urgent email from Clinton aide Cheryl Mills to the other campaign staffers saying, quote, we need to clean this up. President Obama has emails from Secretary Clinton. They do not say state.gov.
So days earlier now, a Clinton aide suggesting the campaign kept it all quiet for a very big reason. That's coming up in a moment. First, Chris Stirewalt, Fox News digital policy editor. Morning, Chris, to you. This was March of 2015. That's where all the action on the server was. The deleted emails, the subpoena from Congress. This was moving very quickly. Go.
Yeah, and what is revealed as I dig through these purloined letters, allegedly purloined letters, you see what? Arrogance, hubris, absolute, total self-regard, astonishing. And what you find really revealing is the frustration that the more clear-eyed members of Clinton's team had when they say, you needed to clean this up. Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you take care of business? And they didn't take care of business. They didn't come forward. And as a result, all this time later, years after she's left, it's still going on, and they're having to say, we got to clean it up with the president.
Okay.
Astonishing.
The aide I mentioned there is Neera Tanden to John Podesta. Okay, this is the back and forth. March 2nd, 2015. This is a Cheryl special. Know you love her, but this stuff is like her Achilles heel or kryptonite. She just can't say no to this stuff. Why didn't they get this stuff out like 18 months ago? So crazy. Podesta says, unbelievable. She writes, I guess I know the answer. They wanted to get away with it. There's probably a morsel of truth in that.